And so if you look at the pictures, most of my injuries were at the chest area and with the padded bra protected where the padded bra was not.
Right. Right.
And it, you know, they're full on punches, full on, I have fingerprints on my throat and my arms from him grabbing me.
So he tells the kids that are out in the hall to come look. Do you hear them at all, or you just heard him say that?
I just heard him. I had lost kind of consciousness when he had choked me, and so I was.
So you're not really aware.
And I was trying to focus on my 3-year-old, who was, I could see, stirring and kind of getting upset, and also the other people that were out there, and as somebody that has been a victim of domestic violence for several, you know, a couple of decades. You try to just put it in your mind and think, where is it going? Where is this time going to lead? Is this the time he's going to kill me or not?
Right.
And when I looked in his eyes, I knew that time was the time that he was
really
not kidding.
He really, really lost it.
Yes.
So that's another thing that we want to go into. So a couple of things that are really important in this case. Number one, you are a victim of polygamy.
Yes.
You are a polygamous wife. We don't need to go into full detail on that, but we can say you were raised a mainstream member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and went into polygamy, but you were so young you didn't really know what you were getting into, I don't think.
I did not.
So that's for another interview and another podcast. But the reason why this case is so important is it seems when we look at just the facts of the charges and hearing you tell this, what we're up against is we've been told that most likely what's going to happen.
He gets to plea in advance, 6 felonies and 3 misdemeanors, which is basically a slap on the wrist.
Right.
And no jail time,
And
no punishment.
in my view, and probably, hopefully, our viewers, when you see the photos, how is that possible?
I don't know.
How is that possible? In my mind, there's probably lots of reasons, but being aware of the polygamy situation in Utah, I think that's why. I think that's why. I think this is a case of discrimination against victims of domestic violence in polygamy, and they don't want any light on that.
They're scared to say polygamy in a court of
Yeah.
law.
Oh, you can't even say it. I mean, it's hard to talk about it all with people. So, so there's that, and then what was the other aspect?
Economics.
Oh, well, I mean, it's speculation, but so why would they not, if this is the reason, if polygamy is the reason, which I think it is, there's only a few reasons why. One is we have data on the amount of abuse that's happening. This wasn't your first go around.
No,
this was not the
wasn't.
first time that he had been violent with you.
It's
Over how many years?
24 and a half.
24.
Actually, that's the married time when I left,
Mhm.
and I knew him 3 years before that.
So anybody looking at it black and white on paper with that, just that one incident, is going to say, what? And with the data that we have from Holding Out Help on the amount of violence that's happening just from those who are leaving, it's astronomical.
It gets worse. And that's why most women that leave polygamy end up going back, is because the man makes the woman's and children's life so much worse that they break them because they don't have. I happen to have a wonderful support system. I have a lot of friends, a lot of family,
On the
lot of loved
outside.
ones
On the outside. Mm-hmm.
that for the last 32 months has supported me.
Mm-hmm.
If it was another woman that had been raised in polygamy, grandparents and
7
stuff,
generations.
yes, and a lot of them do leave for a time and then they go back and it's worse. And I have to say that there are so many domestic violence things on TV where the woman makes complaints, and the cops don't listen to her, and then they end up getting killed, and the policemen say, well, we didn't know. But there's been, 5, 6, 7 complaints about violating protective orders, kidnapping their own children, not following judges' orders,
Mm-hmm.
and it goes on and on and on and on, and that's why the women die leaving domestic violence situations.
The homicide rate in Utah for the homicide rate contributed to domestic violence cases. I forget the percentage. It's really high. It's higher than California, I believe.
It's huge.
It's above 40%. Above 40% of all homicide cases in Utah are domestic violence related.
It is.
It's huge. So, that's where I was going. Was this is a domestic? Not only is it a domestic violence case, but it's a case of a woman who has lived polygamy for
24 and a half
24
years.
and a half years, had 15 children.
In 19 years.
In 19 years, and I've never seen a video like this. I've never seen an interview like this. I've read books.
But it's real life.
But it's real life. And, Trav, will you explain a little bit of how you compared, remember we were talking about animal shelters and stuff on the problem?
Yes. So, should I go in front of the camera or no?
Yeah, if you want to come in front of the camera,
I
you
don't
can.
care.
You don't have to.
Okay, I'll just stay here then 'cause
Okay.
it's easier. So, you have to think about it in the sense of, for example, let's take animal shelters. I don't think I've gone a week without seeing a commercial for, oh, see this poor puppy. We need to save this poor puppy. You can call this number and save this puppy.
Mm-hmm.
But then you think about orphanages, and in my lifetime, I have never seen one orphanage or seen any commercials about an orphanage.
In real life.
Ever. And I've been alive 19 years, and I remember pretty well about 15 of them.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, so how does this
And so
translate?
how this translates is because, or maybe not, but it really seems that because it's such a big public issue about all these animals in the shelters, it's not as big of an issue anymore. Because people, you're putting it in their face. You're saying, look at this is an issue. And people can't say, no, it's not, because you're showing them it is. And so people deal with it. They say, oh, I can afford a dog. I can get a dog.
Or contribute.
Yeah, I
donate,
can contribute. I can donate. I can do something. But then if you look at the statistics, which you actually have to search for, as opposed to the animal shelters, of kids that don't have parents that are in these that are in their own shelters, it's so much worse than animals. People are adopting animals at a higher rate than children, even though children is worse and more important because nobody's telling it. Nobody knows how bad it is. And it's the same system with polygamy. No one knows how bad polygamy is. People just know, as far as most people are concerned, polygamy is having more than one wife, starts there, ends there, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
But the true story is that it starts with more than one wife, and it always, so far, every single instance we have found, ends in extreme abuse, rape, and in some cases murder.
Massive rape culture on steroids, right?
75% of people who leave say that they've been raped, and that's just the people who admit it. As opposed to the 12% of people in the United States average who say that they've been raped.
As a whole. So, I mean, unless we really have, unless we really have someone like you who's brave enough to come on camera and be a face right now, because up until this point, a different picture has been painted.
Absolutely.
Completely different picture has been painted.
And a lot of us are, I've had attorneys say, well, you didn't act like a big enough victim when you were in the courtroom. Well, I have been a victim, but I am a survivor of polygamy and domestic violence.
But you've also been a victim, you've also played the part of someone who has had to endure abuse for how many years?
30.
So 30 years you've endured abuse. So how do they expect you to act in the courtroom?
I don't know.
Do you see what I mean?
Exactly.
Does that make sense, Travis?
Yeah, so the problem is that they expect you to act the part of, oh my gosh, I can't believe this happened, but it's been 30 years. And so by this point, you can believe it happened because it's happened so often that it's a part of life, which should never happen to anyone. No one should ever have abuse be a part of their life so much so that it doesn't surprise them or faze them. But that's the thing that gets the courts, is they're saying, well, you didn't seem upset. Well, that's because you put upset in the back of your mind because it doesn't help the situation.
Well, and the thing is that, you know, you become so victimized, and a lot of the men just want to break the women down to the point where they have complete submission. And a lot of the women, most of the women I know that have left, end up going back because they don't know any other way and they don't have the support. I have 7 minors that I am fighting to change their life, to give them a chance at life for, that I will do anything for. And that's why I have to be strong. And I have to be strong for not only me, but there's so many other women out there that need someone to look up to. I pray and hope God will let me have that calling, or be called to that, or be just a face or a voice. That they said, you know what, she was married 24 and a half years, she had 15 kids in 19 years, she left, so can I.
Let's shine a light, Travis, on, you mentioned the statistic already, but let's shine a broader light on that. Let's zoom out of the picture. And even I didn't realize until Travis was able to. Travis is really smart, in case you guys haven't noticed, for those who are listening and can't see him. And he has a really good way of putting into perspective something, difficult things like percentages. Like we hear percentages and we don't know what that means. I mean, I don't know what that means. So Travis has a really good way of being able to put these numbers into everyday normal people language. So Travis, can you, and don't quote us 100% because we don't have the facts here, but Travis pretty much knows, put into perspective how bad the abuse is based on the statistics from Holding Out Help. Okay. And how that looks, and remember that there are people that are going to say, this is another problem we have with polygamy. People say, well, there's abuse in every marriage. There's abuse in every community. There's sexual assault in every community. This is just sexual assault in polygamy. There's no difference. So talk about how much higher these rates are and why they're like that.
So let me just start by saying, if it was exactly the same, people wouldn't leave the community. Because first off, if it's the same everywhere, leaving the community, you'd be in the same situation. Actually, you'd be in a worse situation because now you don't have anyone you know. Mm-hmm. But actually, you can tell that it's worse because, just a second. So a way you can tell how much worse it is think about it like this. The worst country on the planet as a rape statistic, South Africa, 30% of women will be raped in their lifetime. That is from birth to death. That could be anywhere from 45 years to all the way up to like 100 years. Mm-hmm. Probably in a third world country, it's more around 70 to 60. And that means out of a 60-year period, only 30% of those women will be raped. And that is a place with...
And that's the highest,
yeah,
right?
That's the highest country in the world by far. By, I think, a margin of like 5%. Which doesn't sound like a lot, but out of 30, that's a lot. That's like 15% of the whole thing. So if the highest country in the world only has 30%, and that's a place where they can't get any help at all, so that means people can do it whenever they want, and there's no consequence. Same situation here. There's no consequence for raping someone because you go to the government, and the government says, oh, basically is saying, are you a member of polygamy? If yes, we can't help you. And so then, in these communities, all they have to do is go when the government goes to these communities and says, hey, so we heard there was domestic violence here. What's going on? And then the community says, oh no, there's no domestic violence. We haven't seen anything. Because in a normal community, if your neighbor sees that you get punched in the face by your husband and the police go to your neighbor and say, hey, we heard there was domestic violence, your neighbor is not going to lie for your husband. They're going to say, oh yeah, I saw my neighbor get punched in the face. In these communities, it's different because if one member of the community gets outed, everyone in the community gets outed, and so everyone's lying for everyone. And so the normal system of getting justice that works in most of the world doesn't work here because you just have to expect people to be honest, and they're not. Because if you were to ask the neighbor of the polygamist family and ask the next polygamist family's wife, say, hey, was this wife and the other family punched in the face. They say that they were brutally beaten. And if they were to say yes, now what happens is not only does everyone in the community know that they just basically outed the whole community and now they're kicked out of the community, but their husband knows they just outed another member of society, and that's a sin in their eyes. And so now they get beat because they helped their neighbor.
No.
And so now everyone is scared to help their neighbor on threat of violence or death.
It's a wolf pack syndrome.
And this totally leads right up to what is his attorney saying happened? What's the other side? What is it, and why?
His attorney said that made these bruises on myself because he took that second wife and I was trying to get him in trouble. And he's also persuaded my 6 older kids to testify against me, saying that I took a dog to the vet and the dog scratched me when I was going to the vet, even though the dog was sedated and I was driving down I-15.
Well, regardless,
well,
all of your children, they have written statements, right?
Yeah,
They have written
several
statements, and
affidavits.
so, Travis, why would they write those statements?
Fear. So that's the simple answer is fear. If someone that I saw made my mom, who I would as an 8-year-old, I would consider my mom to be probably the strongest woman I know, because she would just be. But then if you see the strongest woman you know is still terrified of this man, you'll do whatever this man says because you've seen the consequences. And as an 8-year-old, even it doesn't matter how young you are, as soon as you reach the age where you realize what violence is, which is about 3 in my experience, like you see someone get punched at 3 and you realize that was mean.
Mm-hmm. That was mean.
Yeah. You realize that was mean, and as you get older, you realize it's wrong, then you realize it's hateful, then you realize it's just illegal, it's just, there's nothing good about it. But when you're in these age, like the minors, like anywhere, I mean, even me at 19, if my dad was highly, severely abusive to my mother and then told me, and at the day after I saw him brutally beat my mom, said, "You're going to say I didn't or else," I'm just going to say in my mind, well,
Okay.
what comes after or else is I get beat. I don't want to get beat, so I'm going to listen.
Mm-hmm. So it's fear.
Yeah, it's absolutely fear, because nothing could make a child hate their mother. That's just not possible. I mean, in my experience with my brother, he hated you for maybe a week or 2 when there was a horrible misunderstanding where he thought you disowned him.
Yeah.
And that was only like a week or 2.
Yeah.
Where, and then all was forgiven because you're family.
Yeah.
And that's just how family works. So it's no way it could be hatred. You could never get someone's kids to hate their mother so much that they would let them be abused like that.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't make me hate anyone so much I would let them be abused like that. I don't care who you are. But you can make someone fear you so much that you'll do anything to not get on their bad side.
Self-preservation.
You can see this in places, this may be more severe, maybe less severe, I don't know the politics of it, but if you take South Korea, people there will never speak out against the government, because if they do, they get in trouble. They get beat, they get killed, they get sent to prison. So even though there are so many things wrong with the government, and they may know, they may not, they may, they would never even dream of saying something. If Kim Jong-un went to them and said, "Hey, you're going to come on into this room because America is going to come in with cameras. You're going to pretend you know what this machine does. You're going to do exactly what he says, exactly when he says it, because if you don't, you'll be punished because you're scared of him."
Mm-hmm.
It's not respect. It's not because you like him. It's not because he's doing the right thing or you're doing the right thing. It's because you're afraid of what will happen if you don't listen. And that will work on any person on this planet. You can make anyone fear you if you try hard enough.
So.
And with kids, it's worse, because kids are not easier manipulated, but they're much easier to make.
Well, they are.
They're much in my experience, kids are much easier to mold to what you want. You can tell them something, and they're much more likely to believe you because they have less experience. And for example, if I were to tell you something that you had been told many times or experienced to not be true, you wouldn't believe me. Where if I told someone in junior high the same thing that they knew wasn't true, they still might believe me because I've got more experience.
Yep. That's very
The
true.
father has much more experience than all these kids, and so they respect them in a sense of, you've got 40 years more experience than I do, therefore you must be more knowledgeable, meaning you must be more right. And so that means subconsciously you're thinking, they're right, so I have to agree in order to be right, and then also consciously you're thinking, if I disagree, I'm going to get hurt. I don't want to get hurt.
And they feel like they don't want to displease their father, who is a patriarch, and you know, in the polygamous system, it is very much please the father. Because if you please the father, you get blessings and promotions, basically, within the group. And, you know, it's a lot easier to get more plural wives. It's a lot easier to get blessings if you're a favorite, rather than someone that's rebellious and stands up even on little things that they don't agree with.
So, let's scoot back just a little bit. So, how does this end? This one incident. How does it end?
I am planning on.
The beating.
Take yourself back to the beating.
Okay.
That day. How does that end? What does that look like?
And he made me change into a turtleneck. I went out and cooked for the 50 people.
So you're crying. How long did it take you to regain composure?
I didn't cry. I knew that this meant everything to my daughter, and I didn't cry. And that is practice after 24 and a half years of stuffing things.
How do you do that?
It's a sickness that goes along with it that you can't.
I've never heard of that before.
Do
you know about that?
Fake it till you make it. Be sweet. Be numb.
You'd been through so much. You just had
You're
to hold
a robot.
it in. You had to hold it in because you had 50 people in the house.
Yeah.
Your children were in the house.
And I didn't want to let my daughter down.
It was her day.
It was her day. And so I waited, and then he left over to go to his other wife's house. And my sister came, and I showed her the bruises, and I cried in her arms. And then my mom and dad came the next morning, and I cried in theirs.
So, I was still stuck on. Sorry, I was still stuck on that. So, he finishes, he says, get up, get dressed, put a turtleneck on to cover up.
Try to get up and get your ass out there and finish dinner. We have company.
In the year leading up to that, because from what you said, the year leading up to this was a very difficult year, extremely, right? Because a new wife had been added.
It'd been courting and then added.
How many times was he violent with you during that year?
A lot. I didn't even count. I know that we had gone to conference and my whole face was black and blue, and he asked me not to go. And her dad actually asked me, will you ever tell me the real reason? And I would make lies like, oh, I was sleeping with the baby, and they'd hit me in the head with their head or kick me, and justify it. But there was a lot of abuse.
So what led to doesn't he get arrested? What happens? When does that happen? On this case.
I left.
So you didn't call the police. So what
No,
happens is
because
you
I
go
knew-
cook dinner.
I knew that if I called the police, and I wasn't ready to leave yet because of the 9 minors and it being so scary, and I was a stay-at-home mom for 24 years, and I didn't have someplace I could take 9 kids.
What
that
about
I didn't
family?
know of.
What about family? Are you
I
thinking?
could've,
What are you
but-
thinking about family?
I could have, but I wasn't really close to my family.
This might be an interesting piece of the conversation. So, your family was members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day
Yes.
Saints. Active?
Very active.
Very active. This year leading up to it, what was your relationship with them like? Are they talking with you? Are you
Yes.
going to family functions?
Yes.
But they don't know about any of the abuse.
So it was always the family functions were planned around Kyle and me and whether the kids could come.
Mm-hmm.
The Thanksgiving before even, my mom and dad invited the second wife, the concubine, to come to their
Are you
house for
serious?
Thanksgiving, trying to smooth over and make it work.
Okay, and I'm not going to place any blame here. I really think that people really don't understand the dynamics.
They don't. And,
Because
and my
we've
mom
been
and
told
dad are
been
just-
told over and over and over again that polygamy is only this, and so that's what we believe.
And my mom
Right?
and dad went above and beyond.
So they
to
were
try to
trying
make
to
it
they were trying to make it
work.
normal, make it acceptable.
Well, they knew that how bad I was hurting. And they thought, well, if we can get her out here in Vernal and invite her and him, we'll get to see our grandkids and we'll get to see our daughter.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
Because they hadn't seen me very much
But they
since
didn't-
I left.
but they were not aware of the amount of abuse throughout the
No,
marriage
never.
at all. Never.
Well, a little bit here and there.
Maybe arguing here and there.
Well, they saw how much alcohol he drank. They saw several things at different sisters'
But you never
events.
called your mom and said, "Mom."
Not till after he married the concubine. And then I started being more open and saying, this is going on and this is going on.
And at that point, maybe people just want to see if you can make it work because you have so many children.
Exactly.
And that kind of thing,
And that-
which is typical.
And that happened a lot.
It happens, yeah.
It did. And, you got to think of your whole family.
Right. The whole situation. Oh, yeah, for sure.
And,
Sure. So then what led to the arrest?
So an officer that I went and filed a report in.
How many days later is this?
So I filed it I left July 11th and I filed it, I believe July 18th. And I had the pictures and I went into the Utah County Sheriff's Office and filed it. And I don't think he got arrested until, if I believe right, November.
What happened that day, do you know?
I was,
Were you terrified? I bet you were
I
terrified.
was
What
actually
your-
out of state.
Oh, you were gone. Okay.
So
Where were you at? Where did
in
you-
Minnesota.
Was this for vacation or
No,
what was this?
I was in for alcohol rehab because I figured that I had an alcohol problem because that's what he kept telling everyone,
Mhm.
that I was an alcoholic.
Right. So if we would let's do mention that because we know this isn't going to be mentioned anywhere
Yes.
else.
Yeah,
He brought alcohol into the marriage.
yes he did.
How long into the marriage? How long?
I was like 24, and we started drinking with his customers, and I was a good PR person.
Mhm.
He's quiet and reserved. I'm pretty outgoing and friendly.
Mm-hmm.
He would have me kind of
And
butter
the
up the
rules aren't as
customer.
strict in the AUB, correct?
No,
in the
they're-
AUB, you don't have the word wisdom. You don't have
No.
DNC 89.
Well, people drink coffee. They do wine for the sacrament. A lot of people
They
drink.
do?
Yes.
Oh.
They not in the public, but in the ordinance building,
Okay.
they do wine, and
Okay.
so
Do they not have DNC Section 89?
they do.
Oh, they just don't follow it.
Yeah.
Why not?
Well, I guess it's kind of one of those. We can follow Section 132. We don't have to follow Section 89
Really?
or Section 121. That.
Do they just not teach it so it's never mentioned?
No, they say we're supposed to obey the word of wisdom, but I think they give it a pass.
Everyone. Leaders, everyone. Yeah, I've
Yes.
heard that. That's interesting.
Yeah. Well, I've been in the ordinance building
Yeah.
and actually poured the wine, so I know that it's in there.
Yeah. So, okay, sorry, I got distracted with that, guys. That's just really interesting. You can
I've
pick,
had-
they can pick and choose which
Yeah.
commandments they want to follow. That's interesting.
Exactly. And we've had prayer meeting in our house where we have had the sacrament and the prayer meeting in our house where we prepare the wine and the bread, and so wine has been in our house.
Well, it's one thing to have it as the sacrament. It's another thing to be drinking it socially because that would never happen in
The LDS
in
church.
the LDS church.
No.
Okay, so he brings alcohol when you're around 24.
Yeah.
And at that point, so then how often is this just always casual drinking? I don't see a problem with that.
No,
I
and
don't.
it was at first, but then it got more and more and more, and then
And he's drinking.
And
Is
he's
he getting
drinking.
violent when he drinks?
yes, and I would stop fights between him and our children. And a lot of times, even after he'd married the concubine, he would be laying on the floor, laying in his throw up, or peeing in the corner of the room, and
That's
have
alcohol.
me to go and tell her I can't spend it was her night, and I had to go and say, sorry,
He can't be with you
Sick.
tonight.
which was very humiliating for
Was
me.
he going to, so how did you get in trouble for being an alcoholic? I mean, so
He-
this is just how bad of an alcoholic would you say you were? Do you think you were an alcoholic?
When they were dating, yes, I drank a lot because I did not know how to.
How do you process that?
How
That's a whole other...
to, the
Cope?
man of.
Cope?
I was self-medicating
Mm-hmm.
with the one thing that I knew how to self-medicate with.
Travis, do you have a comment? Oh, I was just wondering.
And
Yeah, so, I mean, I think that's
I mean,
probably pretty normal.
I had been sat in his office with beers out in front of me and him with a gun and saying, you can't leave until you drink these beers, and I'm trying to go and fix dinner for the kids.
Why would you do that?
I think threatening, because he
Just
was
more
drinking.
control?
Yeah. And he would make me go buy the beer
Did
because
the new
he
wife,
was a
did
bishop.
the concubine drink with you guys too?
No,
Never?
no,
Why not?
because he wanted to hide it from her.
Oh,
And so he would be very...
he was living a different life with her.
He was very abusive to me during the day, and as soon as she'd get home, it'd be, oh, sweetheart, sweetheart, and he'd just yell at me the whole day, you're such a whore, you're such a slut, you're such a no-good mom, and just,
Now, some people would say, maybe, I don't know, that are watching this, well, maybe you're just saying that because
well,
you're jealous
what?
that he only treated you that way. But maybe we really just don't know if he ever treated her that way.
I
For as
don't
far
know.
as far as you know, she wasn't drinking with you guys.
No.
So, I mean, I would, in my opinion, eventually he's going to be an asshole to her. Sorry. Now we got to rate this PG-13. Maybe not.
And
Maybe he's going to play
don't
pretend
know.
for a while.
But she's got the right last name for the group that gives it power, and I was a Gentile that was brought in, and I didn't have any family
But
name.
yeah, that's okay. You don't know, so you can't even talk to
I
that.
don't.
You don't know. So, but
I
did
did
drink
know
with you.
in the 4.5 years that I was there, he would always hide it from her.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So what made it so that you had to go? Did you go to therapy or what happened?
So yeah, it
or was he going to therapy too?
No, well, he was supposed to go to anger management, and I guess
How's that? When is that?
that was clear back when I first left, and I guess he went to 2 sessions, and the guy said, "You're not angry."
Oh, because they can play it really well, right? They can play the system
and
really well.
I don't know what the standards were. For
Oh,
him.
okay. Wait, we got to backtrack. Sorry, we got to go back to. He's arrested, and you're in Minnesota.
Yeah,
Sorry for getting sidetracked, guys.
it's a big long story.
It is, but I want to tell it. So, what happens?
So we figure it's best for my case if I go and be able to show the judge that I'm, trying to get this alcohol problem resolved. But the problem is that I didn't understand is I was coming out of a closed society, going into a society I hadn't been a part of for 25 years. And I didn't know how to function in it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went back to what was being comfortable because I hadn't had enough therapy
I see.
and stuff.
So how long were you gone then?
37 days.
37 days. Oh, but you had already filed the arrests report, right?
Yes, and the divorce.
And the divorce. So what does that look like? Are you telling him, well, maybe this can work?
No, he wanted it to work when I was in Minnesota.
Okay.
He would call me and send me letters and say how much he loves me and
We can work this
we
out.
can work this out.
Does he
Just
say I'll
need
be
to-
better at all?
we need to repent, but you need to repent by helping sabotage this other man's truck and disemboweling yourself or cutting your own throat. Very violent, graphic things.
So we won't go into too much detail, but this is a part of the temple endowment that the mainstream church has taken out.
Right.
But you guys have it in your endowment. So it was originally in the mainstream church, which
But
is
it's been
interesting.
removed.
It's been removed, but it was at one time there. And basically, if you break the covenant, you promise to God that you will disembowel yourself and
Cut
what
your
else?
throat.
Cut your throat.
Cut your heart out.
So he's saying to you, well, we'll just pay that price
Yeah.
and everything will be okay.
Yeah.
Well, so is this figurative or is this real?
Real.
What are you thinking when he
At
says that?
one point in July,
Why even try to get you back if he's saying that? Do you see what I'm saying?
The only thing that I can figure is that he's such a narcissist
Well, he
and wants
doesn't.
control,
And like we said, he doesn't want this to get out.
and that I made him look good.
Right.
And I was the extrovert, he was the introvert. People liked me.
Well, what
didn't
I'm
like
saying is,
him.
if he's saying to you, and sorry if sometimes I have to go back to
No, that's
because
fine. Yeah.
it really is two different cultures. So I'm trying to
It is.
comprehend. If he's saying to you, well, this can be resolved, you'll just suffer the penalty
Right.
from the covenant, which is these very graphic things that you would die from. Like, you're going to be dead.
Yeah.
You can't be disemboweled and survive. So,
Right.
is this conversation on the phone?
No, he did it yelling at me in front of my children.
And what are you thinking?
I'm thinking I'm really gonna die if I don't leave from here.
Oh. So it all sounds crazy to you.
Yes.
Okay. So now you can go. So what?
He's been arrested several times on
Mhm.
different things, and at one point he had a 10,000 cash only bail for breaking a felony protective order, and the prison itself called me and said, "You're in danger. Get yourself and your kids out of town."
When was this?
This was in March.
March
End of February or
this year.
March. Yeah.
They called you and said you better leave.
Yeah.
He's been bailed out.
Yeah.
And at that point,
My parents drove out from Brno to get me and the kids.
what
It might
happened?
have been last year.
Yeah,
It all runs
yeah,
together.
it's fine. So yeah, don't quote us on the date exactly. But so your mom and dad come and get you.
Yeah.
You are certain at that point, I'm all the way done
Oh yeah.
because I'm definitely.
I
dead
was
now.
done April 10th. It's hard to break away from someone that you've been with, and the dynamics of a polygamist group, and because I didn't have family in the polygamist group,
Mhm.
I felt like I was alone, very much a lot of the times.
Right. Because all your family was on the outside.
Mhm. And I was so busy having a kid a year, I didn't even know how to be a mother. I'm just getting to the point now
Mhm.
that I'm connecting and nurturing and being able to
Well,
do
you were in
stuff.
survival mode,
Yeah.
right? I mean, you were for so many reasons. Did you already zoom all the way out with the data? Or did we get
No, I didn't
sidetracked?
say.
I think we got
did
sidetracked.
Yeah, I've been waiting.
Sorry.
So 33. It's 30% rape. I think it's like 31% rape in the worst country in the world, and it is 75% of people are raped in, admit that they have been raped in these communities who have left. The polygamist groups say that's just because we're only asking people who have left, but only 20% of people left Catholicism after hearing about the sexual abuse in that religion. 79% of them said that had nothing to do with it. So if we take that same statistic out of 1,000
And that's
people.
just earlier this year.
Yeah.
We're talking. And I'll post that
Hmm.
that article. That's from this year.
Yeah.
Huge scandal. Everybody knew. There was evidence. There was proof about the sexual abuse in the Catholic Church. And so go ahead, Chuck.
So if we're taking, let's say it's out of 1,000 people, 1,000 people leave this religion. 75% of them say that they have been raped. 21% of the 750 people who have been raped left because of that. That leaves 112, somewhere around there, people who left because they were raped, leaving 592 people who left for different reasons other than rape and just happened to have also been raped.
Right.
If we're going by the same system, which we can pretty accurately go by because they're both a religion, they both have to do with sexual abuse, and they both have to do with people leaving the religion, and they're at about the same time. Not exactly, but
right, but this year.
pretty similar.
Yeah. Or
So-
over the year.
yeah.
Similar.
But they'll insist that we're only asking the loud people and the people who they're saying only people leave because they've been assaulted. If people are leaving a religion at this rate because their reasoning is because they have been raped, that's because they have a reason to believe in that community that rape is a part of the community, which is actually not in their favor if they're saying that people are leaving because of rape, because that means it's so bad in the polygamous community that people are leaving because of it. People don't leave America because of rape. People leave People don't even leave South Africa because of rape. They leave South Africa because it's a poor place.
Right.
Nobody
Right.
leaves South Africa, oh, I was raped by my husband, so I had to move out of the country. No one has ever said that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe someone has said
Yeah,
that
maybe,
in like a
but yeah.
very, very extreme, but to have
But-
75% of a population that is moving out of a belief to say they've experienced rape, if all 75% of those people who have been raped are leaving because of rape, that means rape is pretty bad in that community.
Right, and so I want to stress that because is Utah the most conservative state in the country?
One
believe.
of, not the most, but
Okay.
it's up there.
We're probably in the top 3, top 5 most conservative states in the country, and yet we're hearing this, and what's anybody doing about it? It's really not a surprise, and I know it's not a surprise to many of the women who I've been working with who have left. Also, they're telling me, Angela, this isn't a surprise at all.
Nope.
That they want to drop your case, not one bit.
Nope.